Samuel! What happened, Grandma Maria? A disaster has happened. While you were inside and don't see anything, the local kids have been stealing apples from the garden again. Grandma, why are you so worried? The house has long been abandoned. These apples will fall off the tree and rot anyway. At least let the children eat them. Why would they rot? They won't rot. I can sell them at the market. Grandma Maria realized she had said too much, but Samuel had already understood everything. Samuel had known that she was selling apples from the neighbor's garden, but to be honest, he was sick and tired of her. Now let's file a report. What report? Do you take apples from someone else's garden? Yes, you do. And I could understand you if you were taking those apples for yourself to eat some, but you're doing it to make money. No, Samuel, who told you that? Anyway, nobody wants those apples anyway. I'll tell Grandpa to mow the grass, otherwise the nettles will sting the boy's feet. That's right, let him mow the grass. If it's easier to get to that garden, maybe other villagers will want to take some apples too. Well, shall I go then? Sure, go. I'll stop by in the evening and look at the footpath. And she quickly walked away from the policeman's house. Samuel smiled as he looked after her. He was born here, and even though he hadn't lived here for a long time, he knew all the neighbors very well. Maria had always been like that. If there was a chance to steal something, she was bound to steal, even if she didn't need it at all. Once a year, her husband Max did a fire show. He burned all the unnecessary stuff Maria brought home. He burned all kinds of things, old wooden boards, paintings, shabby furniture, and even fishing nets forgotten by someone on the river. Max was a man with a great sense of humor. Everyone loved him. Everything in his house and household was all right. Grandma Maria was not an easy person. People in the village didn't want to communicate with her because she knew everything about everyone. But a year ago, when one of her neighbors whose sons were stealing apples became ill, Grandma Maria was the one who rescued her. People still talk about that situation. Her husband left Nancy. She was raising 2 sons alone. She did not get any support from her husband. She noticed that lately, she was experiencing some strange headaches. She went to the hospital for a checkup and they told her, the tumor is benign, but it's growing. She needed complicated surgery. The waiting list for free surgery was very long. Nancy couldn't wait that long. But when she heard the price of the surgery, she just walked out of the hospital and went home. She knew she would never be able to save that kind of money. The neighbors were worried. How could this be? She's so young and she has 2 children. They're going to be orphans. While everyone in the village was worried, Maria went to see Nancy. No one knows how much money the old lady gave her, and whether she borrowed it or gave it as a gift without expecting Nancy to pay it back, but in the morning, Nancy had already left for the hospital. When people asked Grandma Maria how much money she gave her, the woman looked at them in surprise. Money? Are you out of your mind? And at home, she'd say to Max, well, we're not going to die yet. We'll save some more money. If we hadn't helped her, her sons would have been taken to an orphanage. She said that all grudgingly, not wanting Max to think she really felt sorry for anyone. But Max knew her very well. He stood up and walked over to her. Maria, of course, we will save some more. Now I know for sure there's no one better in the world than you. Maria looked at him and asked, do you think the doctors will help her? Of course they will. Samuel finally folded all the papers. The thing he really hated about his job was the reports. He's a policeman, supposed to help people, but there's so much paperwork every month that he sometimes thinks about changing his profession. Samuel lived with his parents. He was born here, raised here, and fell in love. His first love, the beautiful Rebecca, immediately reciprocated. She waited for him from the army, getting ready for the wedding. Samuel loved her so much. At the time, he thought that if Rebecca was suddenly gone, he would die too. Rebecca had a friend, Monica, who was cunning and ruthless. She was the reason the 2 destinies were ruined, but was it Monica's fault? No, it was all his fault. Monica had always liked him, and as soon as she realized they would soon be husband and wife, she got sad and she came up with a cruel plan. One day, she called Samuel to her house when her parents were out, asked him to help out around the house, then offered him some coffee. As they chatted, they switched to alcohol. Anyway, Samuel woke up from screaming. Monica's parents returned and found them in bed. Monica's father demanded that Samuel marry her, but Samuel loved Rebecca. How did he even get into her bed? He didn't even remember. Realizing that the whole village was aware of what happened, he rushed to his fiancée's house to talk to her, but on the doorstep, he met her grandma. "She's gone for good. I thought you were a nice guy, but you turned out to be a scoundrel. Don't ever come to our place again." For a week, Samuel drove into the city every day. He walked around the streets, hoping to find Rebecca. A week later, he saw an announcement that a company was recruiting employees on a rotational basis in a very distant city. He left for another city and returned only 9 years later. Monica had long ago turned into a fat mother of 2. Some died, some got married, and some got divorced. All in all, life went on as usual. When his mother saw him, she instantly fainted. It turned out that 3 years ago, she had received a letter saying that Samuel had gone missing. The village administration immediately offered him the position of a policeman. One night, a couple of days after he arrived, he walked up to his mother. "Mom!" "Dear, did something happen? Do you know anything about Rebecca?" "Not really, just rumors. She got married in the city and she has kids, but I don't know anything about her husband or how many kids she has." Samuel was saddened by what he had heard, but he never asked again. The weather was fine, so Samuel walked joyfully down the street. The school year would start soon, and then there would be not much work. There's nothing for the boys to do now, so they have fun the way they can. Samuel finally reached the abandoned house. Max was mowing the grass there. Every time Samuel approached this house, his heart clenched. It was where Rebecca and her grandmother had once lived. "Good evening." The old man turned around. "Samuel, good to see you." "Good to see you too. How are you doing?" "I'm fine, but sometimes I scold local kids. I'm afraid they might set the house on fire carelessly. We should do something about it." "Yes, we should. I already talked to the head of the administration and she has no idea what to do. She says that if we demolish it and then the heirs will be found, who will be responsible? So maybe we should find Rebecca. I mean, it's her house. She tried, but it didn't work." "Yeah, it's a complicated situation. They definitely shouldn't demolish the house. Maybe later her kids will come here. After all, it's a great house." "Yes, you're right." "Well, then we'll just take care of this house until the owners come," the old man suggested. "All right, Max, I'm going home." Samuel said goodbye. "Have a good night." At home, his mother was already cooking dinner. "So, how was your day?" "It was fine. Grandma Maria was complaining about the local kids." "What an old greedy witch. Was she afraid there wouldn't be any apples left for her?" "That's right. How do you know?" "Everybody knows. She sells those apples at the market. She's good at making a profit out of everything." "It's okay. There are plenty of apples this year. There's enough for everyone." The mother sat across from Samuel and looked intently at her son. "You should get married. What are you waiting for?" "Mom, please stop it." "Why? All your classmates are already married. They all have kids, and we have no one. I'll die before I get grandchildren." "And why are you going to die? I remember last year when you retired, you said that only now the real life begins. You promised to watch all the TV shows, and you even threatened me and Dad that you wouldn't cook anything." His mother looked at him perplexed and then laughed. "Oh, come on. I can't even have a serious conversation with you." Vivian looked at her son. He was good at everything. He was tall and handsome and had a good job, but he had no happiness in his personal life. He probably still loves Rebecca. He hadn't seen her in so many years, but he still loved her. But where is Rebecca? No one knows anything about her. After all these years, Samuel still hasn't gotten married because of her. The next morning, Samuel got back to work. He hoped to finish the paperwork today. The window was open. It was windy outside. "Samuel!" He flinched in surprise. Grandma Maria was standing at the window. "Well, what happened again? Did the apples run away?" "No, Samuel, it's much worse." She was so worried that Samuel put the papers away. It looked like he would never finish that report in his life. "Come inside. Tell me what happened." The door slammed. Grandma Maria stood on the threshold, not alone. Max was with her. Samuel looked at them in surprise. Even Max is here. Probably something really happened. Maria was just about to begin her story when the door slammed again. "Samuel, I'm here." His mother came into the room. She brought his phone. Apparently, he'd forgotten it at home. "Maria? What are you doing here?" Samuel didn't have time to say anything. Maria turned to his mother. "Sit down, Vivian. You should listen to us too, since you also live in this village." Vivian sat down, and Maria began her story. "Last night, I saw a strange light in an abandoned house. It was scary, but I decided to come closer. I thought the kids had snuck into that house, but then I realized that they are away at camp. Suddenly, I heard someone moaning. Not human. It sounded like an animal or something. I ran away. Maybe paranormal phenomena started happening there?" Samuel said, "So, do I have to exorcise the devil now?" Maria gave him in displeasure. "Samuel, seriously, how am I supposed to live now?" "Okay, don't get mad. What happened next?" "I rushed home, woke Max up, and told him everything." Samuel turned to Max. "Well, Max, now you tell me." Maria ran into the house shaking with fear. I woke up immediately and asked her what happened. And she told me about some mysterious things, so I laughed. I told her she was out of her mind. Finally, she calmed down. I went back to bed, but I couldn't fall asleep for a long time, and I got curious. So I decided to go and see if anyone was in that house. The night was very dark. Naturally, I felt nervous. I approached the fence, and everything was very quiet. There was no movement, no sound. I was about to leave when suddenly it seemed to me that some shadow flashed from the garden to the house. Maybe a cat, maybe a dog, maybe some kind of devil. Then I heard mumbling and then moaning in the house, just as Maria had said. I don't know if it was a child or an animal, but it wasn't an adult for sure. Samuel tensed. Max was not the kind of person who would exaggerate or lie. "And what did you do?" The old man lowered his head. "I'm ashamed to say, I got scared and ran away. If there's something mystical out there, we could be in big trouble." "Max, stop it! Do you really believe this nonsense?" "Well, I wanted to go there in the morning to see what was going on, but Maria stopped me." "You have a very vivid imagination. You could probably write books. Let's go and see what kind of phenomenon it is." Samuel stood up and Vivian said, "Samuel, take your gun." "Mom, I can't believe my ears. Do you believe this nonsense too?" "Don't worry, I always have my gun with me." They had to walk through the whole village, and by the time the policeman reached the house, he was followed by at least 10 people. Everyone was curious to see what was going to happen there. Samuel and Max approached the house. Suddenly, Samuel stopped. "What the hell is that?" There was a brown-stained rag on the doorstep, and the door was slightly ajar. Yesterday, when he checked the house, there were definitely no rags there, and the door was locked. Samuel showed Max the rag. The old man saw it and went pale. Samuel pulled him aside and gestured with his hand for Max to walk back. He took out his gun. Max cautiously stepped back. Suddenly they heard a moan from the house, and then a child's voice began to say something. Samuel swung the door open with his foot and burst into the house. A little girl was lying on the floor, her leg bandaged. That's where the stained rag came from. The girl was agonizing with fever, and a weeping boy was sitting beside her. He looked at Samuel with huge, horrified eyes and whispered, "Don't kill us, please." "What? Don't be afraid. I'm here to help you." He bent over the girl. Samuel pushed the cloth aside. The girl's leg was swollen. He went to the door. "Get the doctors in here quickly." Then he looked at the boy and turned to the people again. "And get the child something to eat, too." Grandma Maria ran into the house. Someone ran to find the doctor. Samuel picked up the girl and moved her to the couch. The boy immediately sat down next to her. Samuel's mother and Max had already entered the house. Everyone was looking at the children sympathetically. Samuel looked at the boy. "What's your name?" "Paul." "And who is this young lady?" "That's my sister, Nina." "How did you get here?" "Our mom told us to hide here. Our father lost all his money gambling and he wanted to give Nina to those men to pay off his debt. Mom wouldn't let him, so he beat her up. When we were running away from Daddy, we were climbing the fence and Nina jumped and hit a nail with her foot." "Mister, will they save her?" Everyone was shocked. A few minutes later, Maria and the doctor showed up. The doctor examined Nina, gave her some injections, and then treated the wound. Paul sat down at the table. He ate so greedily that Maria cried. "You probably haven't eaten in a very long time. But why didn't you come to us and ask for food?" "I couldn't. You would have called the police and they would have taken us to an orphanage." "Don't be afraid. The most important thing now is to help your sister." "Right. Tell me, Why did you come to this village? Just because there was an abandoned house here? No, but it's a long story. Mom explained to Nina which village we should go to. People began to look at each other. It looked like the kids were really here for a reason. Also, Mom wrote a letter. She told us to find Samuel or his mother. Vivian shrieked, and Samuel turned to the boy. Give me the letter. I'm Samuel, and this is my mom. The boy turned to his sister. She opened her eyes, looked around frightened, and then her gaze stopped on Samuel. We found you. Mom said you are a good guy. You will help us, the girl said in a weak voice. She tried to reach into her pocket, but she was so weak that there was no way she could do it. Then Paul walked up to her, helped her to get a piece of paper, and brought it to Samuel. He asked, without reading the letter yet, Nina, what's your mother's name? The girl sighed, a tear running down her cheek. Rebecca. Samuel felt as if the ground shook beneath his feet, and someone in the house said, Right! I didn't get it right away. Look at the girl. She looks just like Samuel. Then Vivian burst into tears. While people were fussing over the children, Samuel opened the letter. Hello, Samuel. If you are reading this letter, it means the children have found you. I beg you, help them. My husband has lost his mind. He lost everything, including our apartment. Some people come to us all the time and demand money. He's been acting crazy lately. And then he decided to sell Nina. She's only 12, and he decided to give her to some criminal for the night to pay his debts. Please help them, because I can't do it myself. Hide the children and don't tell anyone. My husband is a well-known man. If they tell him where they are, nothing can help Nina. Forgive me, Samuel. When I came to the village, Monica told me everything. I'm stupid, but there's no going back. I was already married. I got married out of spite. Also, Nina is your daughter. That's why my husband doesn't care about her. I beg you, help the children. Samuel put the letter in front of him, then looked at Nina. He knew at once that she had read the letter too, so she knew he was her father. The doctor walked up to Samuel. What are we going to do? We should take the girl to the hospital. Is it possible not to take her to the hospital yet? They can't go to the city yet. It's possible, but only if you take responsibility for the children. All right, we'll take the kids home with us. He stood up. No one should find out about them. If anyone outside the village finds out about any of this, the children will be in danger. Do you understand it? Everyone started talking. We understand. Of course, we understand everything. We won't let anyone hurt them. Go ahead, Samuel. Handle it. Vivian said. Samuel, we need a car. Nina can't go. Someone said, I'll drive here in a minute. In the meantime, help the girl get up. Nina and Paul entered Samuel's house. Vivian immediately made a bed for Nina and then hugged Paul. Don't worry about anything. Everything will be all right now. Samuel came home and sat down in front of Nina. Nina, you and I will definitely talk about everything, but right now, we have to help your mom. You have to tell me everything. When is your father away from home? How are the rooms arranged? Give me the address and tell me about the neighbors. In general, tell me everything you know. Any detail could be crucial. Are you sure you'll save her? Of course. Don't worry. The main thing is that you tell me everything you know. Nina talked for a long time. Samuel took notes in his notebook, then stood up. All right, I'm going to the city and you have to stay here. Mom, the guys will stay outside our house. They will guard the house. Please make them dinner. I hope to be back by morning. Be careful, son. Sure. He looked at Nina, then at Paul. Since today, I have to be very careful. After Samuel left, Vivian was very worried. It all felt like some kind of action movie. Vivian knew that Samuel was not alone. There were 2 other young police officers with him. That calmed her down a bit. By evening, Nina felt worse. The girl was delirious. They called the doctor. She took a long time to examine her leg. We have to take Nina to the city hospital to open the wound. You know we can't. Maybe you can do it yourself? And what if something goes wrong? If something goes wrong, then we will take her to the city hospital. You know we can only do this as a last resort. The woman sat for a long time, looking at Nina, at Paul, thinking about something, and then she said, All right, I'll do everything myself. Now I'm going to prepare the instruments, and you bring me some clean tissues, some towels, and hot water." The doctor finished all the procedures in an hour, told Vivian what to do and how to treat the wound, left her medicines and bandages, and went home. In the evening, after feeding Paul, she went outside. She couldn't sleep, so the woman sat down next to the men. Her husband asked, "How was the girl?" "The girl." And then Vivian realized, "You don't know anything!" "What should I know?" "Nina is your granddaughter." The man was very surprised. While everyone was chatting, it got dark, and suddenly they heard the sounds of a car approaching the gate. Vivian ran into the house and waited. After a while, her husband appeared on the doorstep, followed by Rebecca. She was very skinny and exhausted, but still beautiful. "Mommy!" Nina tried to get up, but Rebecca was already rushing toward her. "How are you, my girl? Samuel told me you weren't well." "Mom, I'm already okay. Grandma takes care of me. She's so kind." Rebecca hugged the children and cried. "Don't be afraid of anything. Everything will be all right now." Vivian already knew that Samuel went to the city police. It turned out that Rebecca and her husband had security cameras at home, and when they ran away, the woman had taken the videos with her, so there would be enough evidence to prove her husband's guilt. It was almost dawn, but Rebecca still could not sleep. She walked quietly out onto the porch and took a seat. The door opened almost immediately. Someone put a jacket over her shoulders and then sat down next to her. The woman turned around. It was Vivian. "Waiting for him?" "Of course I am." "He still hasn't forgotten you." "And I haven't forgotten, but I feel very guilty." Vivian sighed. "Everyone makes mistakes when they're young." "No, Vivian, I don't deserve him, and Paul is not his son." "Nonsense. Children won't be an obstacle for those who love each other." It was already morning, but there was no news from Samuel. Rebecca waited for him, looking out the window. Finally, in the evening, the familiar car drove up. Everyone ran outside. The two men who went to the city with Samuel got out of the car, but Samuel wasn't there himself. Vivian's heart almost stopped. But then one of them opened the back door and helped someone get out. It was Samuel. His head was bandaged, his arm in a garter. Vivian rushed toward him screaming. So did Rebecca. "Mom, come on. It's just a scratch. Don't scold me." Vivian sobbed and examined her son's wound at the same time. Then Rebecca walked up. She looked at Samuel for a while, and he looked at Rebecca. She hugged him and cried, "Forgive me, Samuel. Forgive me if you can. I've caused so many troubles in your life." For a week, Vivian didn't let her guests leave the house. Also, she helped Rebecca clean her house. Vivian immediately made friends with the children. "Come to see me more often. Grandma Vivian always has something delicious for you." Rebecca smiled. "Come on, Vivian. We're going to live next door." "Still, come to our place more often. My home is your home." Dinner was almost over when suddenly Samuel stood up. "Well, we all make mistakes, including me, and I want to fix one of them, to do something I haven't done before." He knelt in front of Rebecca and pulled a small box from his pocket. "Rebecca, marry me. I should have proposed 13 years ago, but better late than never." Rebecca was silent, and the silence went on for quite a long time. Vivian looked at her frightened, and finally, the young woman sank to the floor next to Samuel. "I've waited for this all my life! This all my life! This all my life! This